The case for libertarianism. I will first give you an economic outline. Libertarianism is good for the whole country because the ideal of the Libertarian Party is to have as little taxes as possible. If we have less taxes, then Social Security doesn't matter anyway. The idea of the Libertarian ideals is to have no property taxes. If people do not have property taxes, guess what? Senior citizens don't need their mediocre Social Security in the first place. You take money from the 1950s that the poor senior citizens put in now, with inflation, that money is now worthless. Not to mention the actual managing. All these people who are hired to manage Social Security, in the end, it is pretty much just nothing. There's nothing to it. However, with the libertarian system, we would have as little taxes as possible because we would have as little government spending as possible. Which means that if there was no property tax, that would be the most beneficial thing for senior citizens there could ever be. Instead of getting a pathetic Social Security check that is basically diminished from what they put into in the first place, Social Security does not retain value. It is a waste. People can, at least bonds have the capability to keep up with the times in some matters. Social Security is just basically a fallout. Not only does it just disappear because of inflation, and then you have to manage it, and it does not keep up with the times, and it's a waste. However, property taxes, what do you think people do when they're old? One of the first things they do is they leave their towns because their property taxes is too much. So having no property taxes from the libertarian ideals is the best ideal. The libertarian ideals are not to give mediocre social programs, which are just cover-ups of underlying problems in the first place, but to rather fix the problem. Social programs are basically a cover-up for a problem. They do not solve problems. Rather, they're a cover-up for an underlying problem that exists in the first place. That is what Social Security is. Social Security is a cover-up of a problem. Getting rid of property tax is actually solving the problem, not at the root, not actually covering up a problem, which is what we need to do. And that's why libertarianism is the right ideal. Perfect example, people say, oh, the Libertarian Party doesn't take care of the poor. Oh, if there's no property tax in the first place, guess what? Everyone's rent that's poor would be probably less than half the amount as it is. Instead of having mediocre programs like Section 8 in projects, which is pretty much the same as it would be if there was no property taxes. I mean, what someone pays into projects for their actual rent is very similar to what the libertarian system would be of no taxes, because the landlords, half of their, sometimes even more, in a place like New York, I mean, much of their actual rent is from taxes, and that is why we needed the projects in Section 8 in the first place, which is mediocre. Why cover up the problem with bullshit that pretty much, instead of actually getting rid of the problem, pretty much just keeps people barely above the problem? Why don't we actually go to the root of the problem, which is what the libertarians believe in? I mean, it is all a joke. What about welfare? We give $1 to someone for welfare, and we think that dollar is going to help them, when 40 cents of the dollar is going out to manage it. So what is it left with? A joke. So if we have low property taxes, or no property taxes, or almost non-existent taxes in the first place, that is actually solving the root. If there are lower taxes, then small businesses can prosper and give people better wages. If there were no property taxes for small business, they could give people better wages, which gets rid of the underlying problem in the first place. That would give people more jobs, a better living, period. Every time someone pays less property taxes, that gives them more money in their pocket that they can both spend to stimulate the economy. They can spend more money on making private businesses. And that is the underlying root of the problem. Get the root. Don't cover it up with bullshit. And that's what social programs are. And that's why it's a joke. I mean, with all the social programs within the American ghettos that most people have, instead of actually getting rid of the problems that cause the ghetto, it's pretty much like, oh, well, you're poor, and we'll give you, instead of being in poverty, we'll give you at the poverty line, and we'll keep you there. Instead of actually giving them the ability to get out of the poverty line, they'll just keep you there. So how come we don't just make a system that actually functions for once in the first place, so we don't have to cover it up with bullshit? And people will tell you in the first place that the reason why things like Walmart and all these businesses in the first place take advantage of us and fuck us over is because the government themselves helps them out. Look at their bank bailout. The libertarian ideal is for basically stimulation, and by there being more for the middle class and the lower class there, and not giving big businesses breaks and just kind of letting the market do what it would do, we would progress as all. Like, all these businesses like General Motors can just do whatever the fuck they want and fuck up our economy, make like shitty cars, and it's just like, oh, well, if we fail, then the government will bail us out. So what the hell kind of system is that? It's bullshit. How many people have lost their jobs from General Motors in the first place because they didn't think they had to do anything because they knew they would just get bailed out if they fucked up? Same with Ford. How about if people think they have to save their asses in the first place, then they work harder, and therefore we would have a progressive economy instead of an economy that's being taken over by Japan, China, and Germany, Russia, and all these countries. We need to look out for ourselves, and that's what the Libertarian Party is for.